Hold on tight, because what's coming is absolutely loaded. We've got a key safety who might be playing their final snaps with the Bears due to an issue no one wants to talk about, and the decisions we make now will determine whether we stay mediocre or become champions. But wait, because there's an elite edge rusher available who already has proven chemistry with our coordinator and could turn our pass rush from pathetic to deadly. The catch? They cost $25 million a year, and we're in negative salary cap territory. And while everyone's focused on that, there's a critical issue that's killing us. We can't stop the run. 5 yards per carry. But there's a defensive tackle out there who could bring back our monsters of the Midway identity. Stick around, because this could define our future. Let's get straight to the point, because this is something no one wants to say out loud, but everyone is thinking. Our safety's future is up in the air, and the signs aren't good, folks. Not good at all. After years of watching this team struggle to find stability in the secondary, after drafting him in the second round in 2022 with hopes he'd be a cornerstone of this defense for the next decade, we're now at a point where everything suggests Jaquan Brisker might not be in Chicago next season. And I ask you, how did we get here? I think we all know the answer. Concussions. That's the brutal reality no one wants to admit, but it's staring us in the face. Brisker missed 12 games in 2024 due to concussions. 12. In his first 3 seasons, he missed time every year with the same issue. This isn't a coincidence, it's a concerning pattern that puts not just his career, but his long-term health at risk. Brad Biggs from the Chicago Tribune said it crystal clear, it's hard to imagine Brisker back with the team next season. And look, I have huge respect for what Brisker did against the Rams in the playoffs. The guy played all 19 games this season, and that deserves recognition. But let me tell you this, we can't let one game, no matter how important, cloud our judgment about an entire season where, frankly, he didn't have the impact we expected. 442 total tackles in 4 seasons. 7 sacks. 4 interceptions. Decent numbers, but are those the numbers of a safety you're going to pay in a market where you desperately need cap space? I don't think so. And here's what's really got me thinking. Brisker posted 2 broken heart emojis. 2. Right after Biggs talked about his uncertain future. You think that's a coincidence? I don't. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Brisker himself said he'd be happy to stay in Chicago, but he's not sure if Chicago wants him back. And that's the problem, right? Because this isn't about whether Brisker wants to stay. It's about whether the Bears can afford to keep him when you're $17.4 million over the salary cap and have a huge list of free agents to sign. Think about this for a second. Kevin Byard, our all-pro safety, is also a free agent. Ryan Poles already said publicly he wants to bring him back. Do you really think we're going to pay 2 safeties when we have critical needs at edge rusher, on the defensive line, and maybe even at wide receiver? That's crazy. And here's what frustrates me about this whole situation, the timing. We're at a point where this team finally has a franchise quarterback in Caleb Williams. We finally have a defense that leads the league in takeaways. We finally made the playoffs after years in the wilderness. And now we have to make tough decisions about players we drafted just 4 years ago because the salary cap doesn't forgive anyone. The Packers are rolling with Jordan Love. The Lions just made the Super Bowl. The Vikings have Sam Darnold playing like an MVP. And we're over here debating whether we can keep a safety who missed 12 games in 1 season due to concussions. You see the problem? So I ask you this, if you were Ryan Poles, what would you do? Would you pay a player with a history of concussions when you've got negative cap space and needs all over the roster? I think the answer is obvious, but it's hard to admit. Because look, Brisker's a good guy. He played with heart against the Rams. But in this business, sentimentality leads to mediocrity. And Chicago cannot afford more mediocrity. Not after years of suffering with quarterbacks who weren't the answer. Not after watching the Packers win division after division while we rebuilt. The reality is this, the Bears are probably going to the draft to find Brisker's replacement. They'll try to re-sign Byard if the money makes sense. And they'll let Brisker test the free agent market where, honestly, his value will be limited by his medical history. Is it fair? Maybe not. Is it the reality of the NFL? Absolutely. And I'll say this, if the Bears are going to compete for a Super Bowl during Caleb Williams' window, they can't let loyalty to individual players get in the way of building the full roster. Now, if that first story brought you down, get ready, because this could completely change the narrative of this offseason. We're talking about the possibility of bringing in one of the most dominant edge rushers of the last decade. A guy with history with our defensive coordinator. We're talking about Trey Hendrickson. Let me ask you, did you see our quarterback pressure this season? We finished 29th in the league in pressure rate at 31.1%. 29th. You know what that means? It means Montez Sweat was out there alone, fighting battles he couldn't win because he had no help. Not a single other edge rusher on our roster with at least 100 pass rush snaps had a win rate over 10%. None. Deo Odeyingbo got hurt. Austin Booker is still a project. And there was Sweat, trying to carry the entire load while opposing quarterbacks had all day to find open receivers. But here's where it gets interesting. Trey Hendrickson is available. And not only is he available, he's got history with Dennis Allen, our defensive coordinator. You know what that means? Hendrickson played his first 4 seasons in New Orleans under Allen. In 2020, his last year with the Saints, he exploded for 13.5 sacks in 15 games. That was the start of what became one of the most consistent edge rushing careers in the league. Over the last 3 years, he's top 5 in PFF's pass rush grade with a 92.5. He's one of only 6 edge rushers with a pass rush win rate over 20%. I'm telling you, chemistry between player and coordinator is real. When a player knows the system, understands what the coordinator wants, and there's mutual trust, that translates to production on the field. And Hendrickson with Allen already proved that formula works. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Hendrickson is 31 and coming off an injury that kept him out 10 games this season. And you're right to be concerned. A core muscle injury that required surgery is no joke. But let me ask you this, would you rather bet on a proven 31-year-old with elite production, or keep waiting for young and proven players to suddenly become dominant pass rushers? Because look at what happened this season. We trusted the depth. We trusted someone would step up next to Sweat. And what happened? We finished 29th in pressure rate and watched Caleb Williams run for his life because the defense couldn't get the other quarterback off the field. The Bengals are clearly going to let Hendrickson go. That situation has been heading toward a split for years. He wanted more money, they didn't give it to him, and now with his injury and age, it's the perfect time for both sides to move on. Spotrac projects his market value at $25.4 million per year on a 2-year deal. Is that a lot of money? Of course. But let me ask you, how much is it worth to have a defense that can really pressure the quarterback? How much is it worth to give Caleb Williams a defense that can get off the field on 3rd down? And here's what really excites me about this possibility. Imagine a defensive line with Sweat on one side, Hendrickson on the other, and the chemistry that already exists between Hendrickson and Dennis Allen. You think the Packers are going to protect Jordan Love against that pressure? The Vikings going to keep Darnold clean? I don't think so. But wait, here comes the tricky part, the salary cap. We're at negative $17.4 million. How the hell are we going to pay $25 million a year to Hendrickson when we don't even have space to sign our own free agents? Here's what I'll tell you, there are ways. Restructure contracts. Cut underperforming players. Make tough decisions like potentially letting Brisker go or even, this one hurts, consider moving DJ Moore or Montez Sweat to create space. Sound drastic? Absolutely. But let me ask you, do you want to be a team that makes the playoffs and loses in the first round, or a team that competes for Super Bowls? Because if it's the second, you're going to have to make moves that hurt in the short term but put you in position to win long term. And look, I understand the risk. Hendrickson is 31. He's coming off a serious injury. His medical exam is going to be critical in determining how much he's really worth. But when I look at teams that win Super Bowls, they all have one thing in common. They can pressure the quarterback without sending extra blitzers. The Niners have Bosa. The Eagles have Carter and Sweat. The Cowboys have Parsons. And us? We've got Montez Sweat and a bunch of question marks. That's not enough to win in January and February. The Hendrickson-Allen reunion isn't just a feel-good story. It's a real opportunity to take this defense from good to elite. It's the difference between generating pressure 31% of the time and generating it 40% or more. It's the difference between giving Caleb Williams a defense that can win games on its own. I believe Ryan Poles needs to seriously explore this option. He needs to make the calls. He needs to see what the medicals say. He needs to find a way to create the cap space. Because if he doesn't, and we watch Hendrickson sign somewhere else and dominate for 2 or 3 more years, we're going to be sitting here asking what if? And now we get to what might be the most important story for the long-term future of this defense. Because while everyone's talking about edge rushers and safeties, there's a fundamental problem no one wants to admit. We can't stop the run. 5 yards per carry. 5. Do you know what it means to allow 5 yards per carry in today's NFL? It means teams can control the clock. It means they can keep your offense off the field. It means that in critical moments, third and short, you're not getting the stop. And here comes Mel Kiper Jr. with his mock draft saying the Bears should take Kaden McDonald, defensive tackle from Ohio State, with the 25th pick. And I'm telling you, Kiper is right. Let's look at our interior defensive line situation. Jervin Dexter is heading into a contract year. Grady Jarrett is about to turn 33. Andrew Billings and Chris Williams are probably leaving in free agency. You see the problem? We've got no depth, no youth. We don't have a 326-pound guy who can eat up 2 gaps and free up the linebackers to make plays. And that's exactly what Kaden McDonald is. The guy had a breakout season at Ohio State. 67 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. And here's the big stat. He finished with a 92.1 run defense grade from PFF. First among all defensive linemen. First. He forced 2 fumbles, more than any other interior D lineman. And when I watch the tape, I see power. I see quickness. I see a guy who can control the point of attack and force running backs to bounce outside, where your edge rushers and linebackers can clean it up. Now, I know what you're thinking, but he only has 13 quarterback pressures since 2023. Don't we need someone who can rush the passer too? And yeah, that's a valid concern. But let me ask you, what's the priority? Because when I look at what killed us this season, it wasn't a lack of interior pass rush. It was letting teams run the ball at will. It was letting them control the clock in the fourth quarter when we needed the ball back. It was giving up third and short because we couldn't win in the trenches. And here's what I love about McDonald. He played on an Ohio State defense loaded with first-round talent. Jack Sawyer, J.T. Tuamalo, Lathan Ransom. All those guys are going high in the draft. And yet, McDonald stood out. He was still the best run defender at his position. Kiper says the Bears are in best player available territory at pick 25. And he's right. But I'll say this, when the best player available also fills a critical need, that's not luck. That's the draft working exactly how you want it to. Because think about what McDonald would bring to this defense. Suddenly, you've got an interior guy who can control 2 gaps. Suddenly, your linebackers aren't getting blocked at the second level because your DT is eating up 2 blockers. Suddenly, on 3rd and 1, you've got a guy who can penetrate and force the running back to bounce outside where Tremaine Edmonds or TJ Edwards can make the play. And yeah, he only played 564 defensive snaps in 3 seasons at Ohio State. But you know what? That means less wear and tear on his body. It means he's fresh. It means when he hits the NFL, he's not dealing with the accumulated injuries that guys with 1,500 college snaps are carrying. Now, can he develop as a pass rusher? I believe yes. He's got the quickness. He's got the power. What he needs is coaching and technique. And with Dennis Allen as defensive coordinator, a guy who's developed D linemen for decades, I trust they can unlock that potential. But here's what really gets me fired up, the defensive tradition in Chicago. The monsters of the Midway. That identity was built in the trenches. It was built with guys like Dan Hampton, Steve McMichael, William Perry dominating the line of scrimmage. And after years of watching this team try to be something it's not, after years of trying to play finesse football when our identity is physical, we finally have a chance to get back to our roots. We finally have a chance to draft a guy who represents what it means to be a Chicago Bear. Picture this, it's December. It's freezing at Soldier Field. The wind's coming off the lake. And you've got Kaden McDonald in the middle of your defense, eating up 2 blockers, letting Tremaine Edmonds fly free to make tackles behind the line. That is Chicago football. That is what this city deserves. The Packers are going to draft offense. The Vikings are going to try to fix their defense. The Lions are going to reload after their Super Bowl run. And we're going to be here, building a defense that can physically dominate in the toughest division in football. Because I'll tell you this, you can have all the edge rushers in the world, but if you can't stop the run, you're not winning in the playoffs. You're not winning in January when it's 20 degrees and the wind is howling. You're not winning when teams can just run the clock and keep Caleb Williams on the sideline. McDonald isn't the sexy pick. He's not the edge rusher everyone wants. But let me ask you, do you want sexy or do you want effective? Do you want highlights or do you want wins? Because if it's wins, Kaden McDonald is exactly the kind of player we need. And look, if Akeem Masitter had still been on the board at 25, maybe this would be a different conversation. But he went at 20. The edge rusher value disappeared. So what do? Reach for a player just because it's a position of need? Or take the best player available who also fills a need? I think the answer is obvious. And I think Ryan Poles, a guy who's built this roster smart and patiently, is going to make the right pick. He's going to take McDonald. He's going to give Dennis Allen the tools to build a defense that can dominate physically. And in 2 or 3 years, when we're watching the Bears in the Super Bowl with a defense that can stop the run and pressure the quarterback, we're going to look back at this draft and say, that's when everything changed. That's when we became the monsters of the Midway again. So there you have it, Bears fans. 3 stories that are going to define this offseason. The likely departure of Jaquan Brisker and what that means for our secondary. The real possibility of bringing in Trey Hendrickson and reuniting him with Dennis Allen. And the opportunity to draft Kaden McDonald and take back control of the trenches. Now I want to hear from you. Are you okay with letting Brisker go to create cap space? Would you make the move for Hendrickson even if it means restructuring contracts or cutting players? Do you think McDonald is the right pick in the draft, or would you go in another direction? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. I want to know if you're as fired up as I am about what's coming for this team. Because look, this isn't just another offseason. This is the offseason where the Bears decide if they're going to be real contenders or just another team that almost made it. And I believe that with the right decisions, with the courage to make tough moves, this team can be special. But I need you to be part of it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates this offseason. Because I guarantee you, there's more breaking news coming. Ryan Poles isn't done making moves. And you do not want to miss what's next for Chicago. So hit that like button if you believe the Bears are making the right moves. Subscribe if you want to be part of this family that lives and breathes navy and orange. And turn on the bell so when Bears news breaks, you're the first to know. We're a family here. We're Bears fans who've suffered together, celebrated together, and we're going to win together. You're not alone in this. We're building something special on this channel, and I want you to be part of every step of the journey. Bear down, Chicago. I'll see you in the next video with more exclusive Bears news. And remember, this is just the beginning of what's going to be a historic offseason.